Guten Morgen, Bernation.
How do you have people on?
I don't know. It's live on YouTube. Question mark. Somebody said, hey, I'm new here. Rock Dog said, I'm new here. I love the content. What is the schedule for live streams? It's the schedule.
Friday. I mean,
Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8-ish Central AM, 0800 Central, asterisk, caveat. So yeah, it's 8:15 Central this morning. I am President Bear of the Bear Nation. I'm president.
You really just so that I need a new sign now.
What does this whiteboard say? GrindstoneMinistries.com and KalebHouse.com, of which I am president. Technically the president of.
You are, but you don't even like those names, so you give them to yourself. Then
I did not. We have a board, ma'am, who has confirmed my presidency. Unlike somebody we know who pooped his pants as president of the United States of America, Joseph Robert Biden Jr. Asterisk. Good morning, everybody. I think I might have slept too much last night, which is apparently a problem. It is the 21st of December. We are going to do the brief today. I am Bear from the internet, founder and CEO of RefugeMedical.com, Refuge Training, president of Grindstone Ministries and Kaleb House. And I talk at not an iPhone today. This is a Logitech that a patron sent me like 4 years ago. Apparently it still works. More Jocko has indicated, no, this is straight up coffee from the coffee pot. Good morning to everybody in the chat. Let's do the brief after I slurp this coffee for all you audiophiles out there, because some of y'all hate that. Yummy. Minnie Mill says I'm an ERT on deployment near Eureka, California. This form of crisis response is not sustainable. Interesting. The Dragon Keeper. Oh yeah, slurp harder. That's about what we're about to talk about right now. Exactly a year after Northern California was hit by a 6.2 magnitude earthquake, the same area has now been hit with a 6.4 magnitude earthquake that knocked out power for more than 70,000 people and caused widespread damage. Other than a broken bone and a head injury, broken bones. I didn't plan this. What's the featured product today for the December daily deals? It's the splinting kit from Refuge Medical. You can find it on the components page. I'd recommend you get 1 or 12 if you want to keep your arms and legs attached to your body. Way better than having those things fall off when you need them. Other than a broken bone and I lost my spot and a head injury, heads bleed like, whoa, bro. Like they really do. They bleed a lot. And with most like superficial head injuries, people that don't know are like, oh my God, they're dying. It's like, no, it's not a big deal. Just like hold pressure on that. Not too much pressure. There's a cranium in there, but heads bleed a lot. Oh my gosh. There's lots of little tiny blood vessels in your head.
Both thought he like killed Caroline one time.
Yeah. The heads
ended up being like 1 centimeter.
Especially kid heads. Oh my gosh.
It was right at the top of her skull, like right there. And when I finally got it all cleaned up, it was a centimeter, maybe a centimeter. Yeah. But it was pouring down her back. I mean, it was one of those, she threw herself back in one of those windowsills, like marble, and she smacked her right on the edge. Yeah. Yeah.
Harlan, my son, got a little cut. It was probably a 1/2 inch long, and I mean, 1/8 of an inch deep, right above his hairline. And he looked like an extra from Braveheart. Yeah, he did. He just blood everywhere. And he was 6, maybe. Yeah. Yeah. On Thanksgiving, everybody's like, oh my gosh. Like, he's fine. Give me a sock. Hold this sock here. You'll be fine. So, broken bones, head injuries. Other than that, no, there was very little human cost to the 6.4 in California, thankfully. Roads and homes, however, endured quite a bit of destruction. In addition to downed power lines, which children you should never touch or jump over or ride your bikes over, or your cars for that matter, damage to water lines and gas lines were reported. Senator Mike McGuire, not to be confused with Mark McGuire, the home run king asterisk, noted, quote, individual residents are reporting that entire bookshelves and kitchen cabinets were emptied by the shaking. Not my bookshelf, bro. This was not your typical shaker that Northern California is used to, end quote. Some residents describe cleaning up floors covered in broken glass using the light of a flashlight due to the power outage. Similar earthquakes in the years in 94 and 89 have killed 60 people and 67 people respectively. The fact that only a few injuries have been reported so far is actually great news. In other news, inclement weather is sweeping across a wide swath of the U.S. this week as wind chills can reach deep into negative temperatures. Let me please reiterate to everybody in the Bear Nation, it is the month of December, technically winter. It's going to be cold.
Now, will my skin fall off?
Yeah, well, yeah, you got an alert on your phone. Tell the Bear Nation what your phone said.
My phone this morning said that the wind chill was going to be so much, and it said the word frostbite, but I immediately changed to like my skin's going to fall off. I'm from Florida. Like, it doesn't do this.
Half an hour of exposure and your skin falls off.
Falls off. That's exactly what I read. It was like 4 o'clock this morning. It popped up, and yeah, I forgot to put my phone on Do Not Disturb. It was bad.
So let's talk about some practical tips so your skin doesn't fall off. KL, Florida people.
It's not coming to work tomorrow.
Why? I mean, why? I'm probably going to do what I do. I get super restless when there's inclement weather. Yeah, I do. I go on like rescue missions. I put the truck in 4-wheel. In fact, when I get done here, I got to top off my tanks, my transfer tank and my fuel tanks. And I put the truck in 4-wheel and I'm like, who needs what? You out of bread? I got bread, bro. You need milk? Yeah. I got milk. I can't.
Like the third day last year, I finally was like, I mean, we don't need this, but I mean, if you're at the store, like, how about some like chips?
Yeah, we were down to like Mentos.
Yeah, you know, we were like, I'm at the store. What do you need? I'm like, I feel like we have to tell him something. Like, we got to need something. He drove all the way to the store, and the rest of us haven't left our house in a week.
Shalom, Brother Giles. Yeah, my snow trips to Wally World. Exactly. So that's probably what I will be doing tomorrow, which again illustrates positions of strength, but some like really basic stuff. Hey, it's going to be cold, so you should probably wear layers, have some good socks, some good footwear. Please don't be one of those people that when you leave your house, you're in like booty shorts and Crocs with a puffy jacket when it's negative 20 outside. Like, dress for the weather. That's for real. Blankets and sleeping bags. Probably my biggest concern with all of this, other than like do basic prepper stuff, please just do basic prepper stuff, is we saw in Texas a couple years ago cascading grid failures due to high demand because of the low temperatures. A lot of people have electric heat. And so there's a possibility, and this is not me fear-mongering, okay? You guys know that we don't do this here. There's a possibility that there could be, hopefully just localized, maybe regional, please, dear yacht, not national cascading grid failures due to demand. Okay. In the extreme cold, a lot of power plants have issues making power because a lot of power plants use some type of fuel source to create steam. Steam comes from water, and water goes from being a liquid to a solid below 32 degrees. And negative 20 is 52 degrees below the freezing point. So things get a little interesting when you're trying to convert water into steam when the water is now a rock. So there's the possibility for power outages. And so if you are dependent upon electricity for your heat, having an alternative heating method like a wood stove, propane heaters crack your windows so you get a little bit of makeup air so you don't die of carbon monoxide poisoning, things like that. Blankets, sleeping bags, warm socks, long-handled underwear, preferably the red wool stuff that has the 2 buttons with the butt flap. Highly, highly recommend the butt flap long-handled underwear. Basic prepper stuff. Like, is there food in your pantry? If there's not enough food in your pantry, today's the day to go put a little extra food in your pantry. Canned ravioli and Progresso soups and saltines and, stuff. Just get stuff, your quintessential winter storm stuff, the French toast method, where everybody goes to the store and buys eggs and butter and bread and milk. Right? I don't know what they're making, but it's probably French toast.
If you were a prepper and you don't have like a whole case of Progresso soup, like, come on.
I'm saying, right? Like
the beef stew ones, you at least have some.
Hell yeah, right? You make a little rice and you slap some stew on top, and dude, you're good to go.
Toast,
Yeah. 400 pounds of rice, not sure if it's enough. It depends on how many people you're trying to feed. Got an entire video on that in the prepper classroom. It's a free playlist here on the YouTubes. How much food do I need for how many people? Broken down Barney style in the prepper classroom, because I have one of the challenges of being an air quote content creator is trying to figure out how to say old things to new people over and over again. And sometimes it gets a little taxing. So there's what's called evergreen content in the prepper classroom, which is the stuff that I would say to new people over and over and over again. It's pre-recorded, whiteboard, classroom setting, all that information is there. Let's see. Heavy snow and reduced visibility will increase travel safety risks and risk of things like frostbite or your skin falling off if you're KL. And frozen pipes will also likely be present. So having some water in your house, like liquid water, not rock form water, highly recommended. The storm is expected to impact the vast majority of the northern U.S., CONUS, reaching down to northern Missouri and Tennessee. Residents in these areas have been advised to avoid travel if possible and have severe cold emergency kits ready to go. In other words, just do basic prepper stuff. Please do basic prepper stuff. If we have a single casualty in the Bear Nation because of this storm, I'm going to be sorely disappointed. Please don't make Brother Bear disappointed. Just do basic prepper stuff. I mean, you can, if you are not prepared for this storm today, $100, $100 will solve most of these problems, right? Like alternative heating methods, having some food, having some blankets and sleeping bags, and like maybe some board games, a headlamp and some spare batteries in case the power goes out, things of that nature. Awesome loves his booty shorts. Well, awesome one, I've met you. I hope that you don't own booty shorts, but if you do, hey, whatever you're into, buddy, that's all you, okay? Shifting gears a little bit. This week, the United States Consumer Financial Protection Bureau in the U.S., served up the biggest civil penalty of $3.7 billion to Wells Fargo and Company because of its mismanagement of car loans, mortgages, and bank accounts. Yay, you can trust them. They're the banks. Hold on. I have a book that God wrote right here, and he said something about this. Everybody flip with me to the book of Proverbs. Proverbs, chapter 6, verse I lost it. Where'd it go? Oh, that's because it's Proverbs 22, not Proverbs 6. Proverbs 22, verse 7. The rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is a slave to the lender. I would encourage every one of you to not be a slave. I recently, in fact, I have them in my truck. I got two more banners printed
they're here.
For our offices. They are here. And they say simply, big banner. They're 12-foot wide, big banners with huge 386-point print on them that say simply, no peasant shit. No peasant shit. We are promised to be a nation of kings and priests. One cannot be a king and or priest and also be a peasant at the same time. So no peasant shit. Don't put the future of your family, your legacy in the hands of the bankers. Dave Ramsey talks about this all the time. Go to a bank and look around. Why is their furniture nicer than yours? Because they're not in business for you. They're in business for them. And they're not even really good at stewarding your money. Okay. So Wells Fargo got a $3.7 billion penalty because of its mismanagement of car loans, mortgages, and bank accounts. Of that amount, $2 billion was allocated to rectify 16 million affected consumer accounts, and $1.7 billion of it was a civil penalty. The CFPB's, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau's director told journalists, quote, Wells Fargo is a corporate recidivist that puts 1/3 of American households at risk of harm, end quote. That's fun. By the way, do you know who owns PayPal? Anybody?
Who owns it now?
Yeah. Wells Fargo. The bank has been hot water with regulators for years. First, there was a sales scandal in 2016, which resulted in an imposed 1.95 trillion asset cap. Then in 2020, the CEO was banned from the banking industry and fined $17.5 million personally. The bank has changed management and claims to be a different company, quote, committed to doing the right thing for our customers, end quote, per the new CEO. I would imagine that would be a really good talking point for a new CEO. Yes, we're going to do the right things, I promise. Also, please continue to give us your money. Still, this isn't the only financial institution that has landed itself in hot water, which would be very nice to have when your power goes out. Do basic prepper stuff, indicating a deeper issue in the for-profit banking industry as a whole. For-profit banking industry. Yes. A really interesting thing happens with banks. Your debt is their asset. This is a fact. This is not me pontificating. If you look at their profit and loss statements, P&Ls, the more debt you have, the more assets they have. Your debt is counted as an asset to them. Think about that. So do you think it's in their best interest for you to remain in debt? The rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is slave to the lender. Yep. U.S. Bank, the fifth largest commercial bank in the country, was fined by the CFPB for illegally accessing personal data and credit reports of customers and using that information to open accounts without their permission to meet sales goals. Imagine if I did this at Refuge. Like, hey guys, our sales goal is $500,000 this month, and we didn't come near that number. So we're just going to go through the credit card history of everybody who's transacted with Refuge, and we're going to sell all of them a bear fac. You don't get one. We just charged your card to get our sales numbers up. Ha, 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 without your permission or your knowledge. That's pretty scumbaggy, huh? Huh? Deuce Durden said, I've been wanting an SOB, finally pulled the trigger. Wow, I'm pretty critical of stuff. This is top shelf, very well made and well thought out, noticeably durable from the moment you pick it up. Thank you, Deuce Durden. Also, aren't you glad that I didn't just charge your card for that and not send it to you like U.S. Bank did with all of their customers? Interesting. This has been happening with the bank's knowledge for over a decade. A statement from the CFPB read, quote, U.S. Bank's conduct harmed its customers in the form of unwanted accounts, negative effects on their credit profiles, and the loss of control over personally identifiable information, end quote. The bank was fined a whopping $37.5 million after a 5-year investigation. $37.5 million. LOL. Next paragraph explains why that's like nothing. While regulation is needed, the unfortunate reality is that these fines are likely not enough incentive for banks to ensure consumer security. For example, Wells Fargo made a net profit of $19.5 billion in 2019 alone. Here's a $37 million fine. Also, your profit was almost $20 billion. So that's 0.05 of 1%. It's actually 0.04 of 1%. Ow, that hurt. What a slap on the wrist. According to Statista, the most trustworthy banks are JP Morgan, Citi, HSBC, Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, and Santander. And that's like saying the most trustworthy drug dealers or, the most trustworthy politicians. Like they are by their very nature not going to have your best interest at heart, right? Many security-minded folk prefer credit unions, which is run for members rather than investors. Not every credit union is good and not every bank is bad. There are pros and cons to both. If you're on Patreon, there's a link that has relevant information on both banks and credit unions listed. At the end of the day, there's never a guarantee that a regulatory body will come and save consumers after years of investigations. In fact, I would say that the likelihood of any regulatory body saving you is extremely low. So ultimately, each person is responsible to maintain vigilance over his or her own resources. I would also submit, given the economic climate that we're moving into, investing in tangible assets, whether that's something with a low amount of liquidity but a high amount of value, like silver, gold, platinum. By the way, somebody sent platinum into Grindstone. I appreciate you deeply. I had no idea what platinum was worth. I looked that up and I was like, gosh, dang, dude, holy cow. So thank you. We have a little treasure chest now that has metals in it for Grindstone has its own pirate ship. We should get a Grindstone pirate ship. I'm not entirely sure how that serves the mission, but
I know somebody who'd like really like it though.
I know somebody who would really love a Grindstone pirate ship. That's true, with cannons on it. Exactly. How's Yankee doing anyway?
You know somebody's gonna ask that next.
Where is Yankee? Couple of articles I wanted to look at briefly to go through. From RT, Russian propaganda, which I check daily just to kind of keep my finger on the pulse of what are the Russians saying amid everything that's going on in the world. There's an interesting op-ed here on the Balenciaga scandal, which we'll talk briefly about at RT. I'll kind of read the wave tops here. The scandal provoked by Balenciaga's latest advertisement campaigns can be seen as superfluous or understandable, but the real scandal may lie in the way some media outlets have been covering it. In November 22, Balenciaga posted an ad campaign on Instagram that featured children holding teddy bears dressed in BDSM gear. That's like kinky sex stuff. And another one in which a bag sits amongst papers that include text from a Supreme Court opinion in the Ashcroft versus Free Speech Coalition case. The case examined whether laws banning the promotion of child pornography were in line with the First Amendment. The French luxury company apologized, deleted the posts together with its entire Instagram account, and took legal action against the set designer, arguing that he, the set designer, was solely responsible. They have, however, already dropped the case. Let's see. The scandal was intense as it was brief. People got into analyzing the pictures more closely, even spotting what they interpreted as a drawing of the devil, the name of Baal, and a satanic cult cloak. Others focused on social media posts by Balenciaga, Lotto, Volkova, which apparently include imagery reminiscent of the controversial teddy bear ads, as well as gore and other questionable content. Even Kim Kardashian got emotional, though she didn't go as far as to cut her own ties with Balenciaga. Like the Epstein-Maxwell case, all elements are in place for the concerned public to loudly denounce child abuse by powerful people. The article goes on to basically say there's a lot of parallels between the Balenciaga ad and Stanley Kubrick's film Eyes Wide Shut, and that one should look into that. And then it asks, why are these stories so quickly swept under the carpet by the media? In 1968, the famous French designer Yves Saint Laurent published a comic book, La Vilaine Lulu, or Nasty Lulu, which tells the grim story of a little girl going through murders, masturbation, pedophilia, ritual sacrifices, and rapes. At the time, it caused public outrage. Nowadays, it is depicted as a critique of modern society by a very sensitive creator. Okay, that may be. Most people have never witnessed ritual sacrifices, murders, and the rapes of children, though. It seems that people working in the fashion industry share common references or fantasies, and journalists do not see any problems in them. This is quite intriguing in an era in which sexual abuses and misconducts are denounced to such an extent that men hesitate more and more to engage in flirting. The problem is not so much the fantasies of people running a company making clothes for rich people. The problem is that journalists are letting it slide, only getting to work when Kim Kardashian gets emotional. Now, I share the sentiments of the Matthew Bauge, who wrote this article for RT, this opinion piece, and there's been a lot of hay made over this Balenciaga thing. My personal opinion, it's despicable, and it does speak to the comfort level that the wealthy have with sexualizing children. If you know anything about us, you know we are staunchly against that. We go find those children who have been objectified, who have been raped, and we rescue and restore them through Kaleb House. This is a huge problem in society that very few people talk about, let alone do anything about. We had somebody write into Grindstone, this morning? Last night, asking for our statement of faith. And I told KL, I said, it's one word. One word. It's a Hebrew word. It's actually a letter, Hebrew letter. Yod. Yod means do stuff. Works. What is your statement of faith? Do stuff. Do stuff to put a smile on the Father's face. Do stuff to love your neighbor as yourself. Do it. Don't talk about it. Be about it. And there's so many people in the world today, and the reason I bring this up is to illustrate. There's so many people in the world today that want to talk about what's wrong, but not do anything about it. And we get the question all the time. Yeah, but Bear, how did you start? Like, how did you start Kaleb House? How did you start Grindstone? We started doing these things before we ever asked anybody's opinion, permission, or blessing to be able to do them. Now, did that create problems? Yeah. The problems it created was we had to build the appropriate legal structure around the actions that we were taking. The interesting thing, though, is in the United States of America, you can basically do anything you want to do as long as you have the right pieces of paper saying that you can do it. But we saw a wrong in the world, and we just started taking action to right that wrong. And one could make the argument, it's like, yeah, but you're little. So how much good are you actually going to be able to do? More than if we did nothing. There's a couple dozen people who are not being serially raped right now because we started doing stuff. There's more people that we're in the process of rescuing because we started doing stuff. And that's not because we're cool. It's not because we're awesome, because we're the badasses in this relationship here. It's because the Father's incredible. And if you step out in faith and act in righteousness, he will bless the efforts, the yod, the works of your hand. And I bring that up because I'm not special. We're not special. We don't have anything that anybody else doesn't have. Other than the fact that we're doing stuff. Other than that statement of faith. One word, yod. Works. Do stuff. And so if you see something that's wrong, do something about it. Is it a burden? Yeah. Depending on how you look at it, yeah. You know how many Shabbats I've had interrupted with somebody who was in a bad place, who needed something? A lot. More than I can count. But it's lawful to do good on the Sabbath. It's lawful, it's good, it's righteous to get a donkey out of the ditch. When you find out that there's a kid who's in a really bad position, and your first thought is, yeah, but it's Shabbat. I don't want to disturb my shaloms. Like, whose shalom do you think's more disturbed right now? Mine or hers? Or somebody's house has been, or a community or a county has been wiped off the face of the map by a storm. Yeah, but it's Shabbat. I'm resting. Who do you think needs that rest more? Me or them? And again, it doesn't make us special. I think, unfortunately, in many cases, it makes us unique. But I bring that up because every one of you within the sound of my voice is just as capable as we are to go do stuff, to go yod, to go address situations like that may arise. Is it scary? Yeah. Is it literally life and death sometimes? Yeah. Is it the right thing to do? Yeah. And if you're diligent in the doing of, he who can be trusted with little can be trusted with much. It requires a lot of stewardship. It requires a lot of faith. But at the end of the day, you are either aware that something is wrong and you do something about it, or you're aware that something's wrong and you don't. And we would not be able to live with ourselves if we didn't do something about it. What's more restful in the big picture? How can you put your head on the pillow at night and sleep knowing that you could have done something to save somebody's life, literally, and you didn't? Faith the size of a mustard seed moves mountains. That's correct, Sun Zhao Lao. Liberty Off-Road. Now, we must all fear evil men, but there's another kind of evil which we must fear most, and that is the indifference of good men. Agreed. I'm pretty sure most of us would end up in prison for lack of restraint, but better to sit in prison for righteous actions than doing nothing at all. That's a challenge. You know how many problems I've personally witnessed that could have been solved with one good trigger press? More than I can recount here. And I'll say this. There are, and I will be one of the first to criticize bad law enforcement, bad federal agencies. But there are good people. I've met them. I've worked with them. There are good people within DHS, within FBI, within sheriff's departments, local law enforcement agencies, within NGOs across the country. There are good people who are doing good works within those organizations to the best of their ability to help people when we come across them, and we work with them in order to be able to facilitate that. And they have just as big of a heart to do the right thing as we do. And so it's easy to make blanket statements saying that all these alphabet soup agencies are total bullshit and everybody inside of them is corrupt, and deep state and this and that. It's easy to make those statements when you don't know. And then when you start working with some of these people and you realize, yep, they're just as impassioned, they're just as on fire to right these wrongs as we are. And frankly, we need them. Because I could solve some of these problems one time with one good trigger press. And then I'm done. I'm in prison the rest of my life. And I can't help anybody from prison, from that little 8x10 cell. I'm done for. So it does take a lot of restraint. It takes a lot of patience. But it's Yah's time, not our time. It's his will be done, not my will be done. And so I just simply bring up this Balenciaga thing to illustrate that there's a large amount of comfortability with the world's wealthy to sexualize children. And there's also a huge capacity for us normal people to do something about that. And so it's one thing to shine light on the fact that there's a problem. It's another thing to do stuff to fix the problem, whatever that problem might be. And it speaks volumes to the character of a person as to what size problems they take on. This is a huge problem. And I think it's something that we could all be doing more about. A couple other things I want to touch on this morning. You may be aware that President Zelensky is visiting the White House today, President of Ukraine, also from RT. Ukrainian president only wants to explain why he needs more money, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene has said. Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene has spoke out on Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky's upcoming visit to Washington, D.C., expressing outrage over his anticipated efforts to gain more support. In a tweet on Tuesday, Green, who represents Georgia's 14th district, described Zelensky as a shadow president who, quote, has to come to Congress and explain why he needs billions of Americans' taxpayer dollars for the 51st state, Ukraine. This is absurd. Put America first, she added. Now, I'll read a little bit more of this article, but it's important to understand whether we agree with it or not. The reason that so much money is being dumped into Ukraine is to fight that war there. So that war against, because Ukraine is a proxy war between Russia and NATO. NATO allies in Europe don't want to fight Russia on their home turf. Poland doesn't want Russia on their property. Finland doesn't want Russia on their property. The Baltic states don't want Russia on their property. And so Russia, depending on who you ask, for example, somebody like Peter Zihan from Geo Now, his worldview is that Russia doesn't want Ukraine. They want to get through Ukraine. So they're not taking part of Ukraine. They want to take all of Ukraine. Ukraine was part of the former USSR, Soviet states. And at one point, the United States and the West was just as concerned over Ukraine and Belarus as they were over Russia. These were military powerhouses that produced a lot of Russia's war machine back in the day. And Putin has made it clear that his intent, before he dies, is to essentially reestablish the USSR, reunification of all these former Soviet states. NATO doesn't want to fight Russia on their home turf. They'd rather fight Russia in Ukraine. And so Ukraine has become the battlefield on which NATO and Russia are duking it out. And so agree with it or disagree with it, this is at least the reasoning that's been stated as to why we're pouring so much money into Ukraine. Because we'd rather fight them over there than fight them here. Russia's ability to prosecute the war in Ukraine has been less than stellar. Although, depending on who you ask, this is how basically all of Russia's wars go. The first year is kind of a shit show. And after that, they conscript and they throw more and more people at the problem, and they tend to win by sheer volume. So every day that goes by in Ukraine, the Russians conscript more and more people, throw more and more bodies at the problem, and the Ukrainians lose more and more people, which is, again, agree with it or not, why we see more and more money, American taxpayer money, being thrown into Ukraine to provide weapons and training so that they can ideally beat the Russians back out of Ukraine and stem the flow of blood that's taking place there in Ukraine. So Zelensky's at the White House asking for more money. Back to the article. Last month, the Congresswoman, Marjorie Taylor Greene, a staunch ally of former U.S. President Donald Trump, spearheaded a resolution calling for an audit of government funding to help Ukraine in the conflict with Russia. Later, the initiative was narrowly defeated in the House of Representatives, with Democrats arguing that it could send the wrong signal to Kiev. In early November, in the run-up to the U.S. midterm election, Greene said, quote, "Not another penny will go to Ukraine," end quote, if Republicans take control of the Congress. However, after taking the House of Representatives, Republican Representatives Kevin McCarthy and Michael McCall downplayed speculation that the party would cut military aid to Kiev. On Wednesday, today, the White House confirmed media reports that Zelensky would meet with U.S. President Joe Biden, to address a joint session of Congress in his first overseas trip since the start of Russia's military operation in Ukraine. During the visit, Biden is also expected to announce a significant new package of security assistance for Kiev. Politico reported on Wednesday, citing sources, that the Ukrainian delegation is expected to double down on their pleas for advanced long-range Army tactical missile systems, ATACMS, and Gray Eagle and Reaper drones. U.S. officials are said to be reluctant to indulge these requests due to concerns that it could provoke a harsh reaction from Russia. In September, Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova warned Washington that if it sends long-range weapons to Kiev, this would cross a red line and make America a direct party to the conflict, end quote. Now, America is a direct party to the conflict. America, whether we want to admit it or not, has had spooky guys doing stuff that never happened in Ukraine for the last decade. This has been a long time coming. And my best guess at this is Hillary Rodham Clinton if she was going to be elected president, would have initiated this war. This whole Russian collusion thing, we know that the Democrats, and make no mistake, the Republicans aren't any better than the Democrats are in my mind, but we know that the Democrats have wanted war with Russia for a long time. War is profitable. And to a certain extent, I can kind of understand that. If we're going to have a fight, let's have the fight now. It's like, I'm the kind of person that, like, in high school, when somebody was like, oh, I'm going to kick your ass, let's go out in the parking lot after school. I'm like, let's do it right here, buddy. I'm here, you're here, let's party. Let's just get it over with. I don't want you to have more time to plan, to gather allies, to accrue resources. Like, I'm just going to punch you in the face right now. There's something to be said, though. Utterly destroy your enemy, right? This is Sun Tzu, right? The art of war. Completely destroy your enemy. But since August 6th and August 9th, 1945, when we dropped nuclear weapons on Japan, and I know some of y'all will say in the chat, there's no such thing as nuclear weapons. All right, whatever. When we dropped really big bombs on Japan, the world has been flexing into more regional, less intense conflicts. There's been a strong effort by the air quote international community over the last 70 years to limit the likelihood of nuclear weapons being used. And so we've seen smaller, more regional conflicts, even if they're large scale, third generation warfare, like the Vietnam War, the Korean War, and these other small military actions around the world. We've seen more of that in an effort to limit all-out warfare, global war on terror, fourth generation warfare, to limit all-out warfare because of the significant amount of loss of life and infrastructural damage that occurs from that. Thus, the onus to fight this war in a limited capacity in Ukraine. Likelihood of that succeeding depends. If the Ukrainians can finish off the Russians now-ish, before mud season ends in March of 2023, April 2023, there's a chance that Ukraine wins the war. And by Ukraine, I mean NATO wins the war. If not, I'd say it's probably in Russia's favor, because Russia can continue to bring in munitions from Iran. They can continue to get economic support from China. They can continue to conscript and throw bodies into the maw in Ukraine, whereas the Ukrainians are running out of people. They're running out of equipment, which is why Zelensky's in Washington today to ask for more favors from the American taxpayer. And I don't necessarily disagree, but I don't necessarily agree, rather, but there is an argument to be made that if the Ukrainians can handle the Russian problem in Ukraine, that's one less problem that the United States has to deal with elsewhere. How does that shake out for us? Why is that applicable to us? Well, I'm pretty sure a lot of potassium iodide and gas masks have been sold over the last year because of this war in Ukraine. So the prepper industry has been doing really well because of this war in Ukraine, because of concerns that average American citizens have of the literal and figurative fallout from this war in Ukraine. But it really comes down to super basic prepper stuff, like same things we talked about with this cold blast that's coming in. Like, have water, have food, have blankets, have a network of people that you can depend on, have a plan in place. If this happens, then I'm going to do this. There's very little that most of us could do if warheads start falling from the sky. You're going to have at most 15 to 30 minutes warning. At most. It's one of the reasons that population density matters so much. The likelihood that the region that I live in would be targeted by a nuclear weapon is incredibly small. Are there areas of Oklahoma that are important strategically and would make good targets? Yup. Do I live there? Nope. And I don't live in Dallas. I don't live in LA. I don't live in New York or Miami or Chicago or even St. Louis. I don't even live in a city, right? Like, I can't get a pizza delivered to my house. And that is annoying sometimes but it's a lot less annoying than dying in a nuclear holocaust. So, things to think about. Basic prepper stuff. The last thing I want to look at, just because it kind of makes me giggle. From Market Watch, Disney stock is on its way to the worst year since 1974 after Avatar sequel disappoints. And the article goes on from here. Disney shares sank nearly 5% to their lowest level since March 2020 on Monday after the blockbuster sequel to Avatar, The Way of Water, hauled in a measly $134 million domestically. Blah, 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 blah. S&P 500 index, SPX, is down 0.8. It's down 19.9% in 2022, and the Dow is down 10% in 2022. Disney is now worth $156 billion instead of more than $350 billion at its peak, and analysts have cut 20% from Disney's earning expectations for the new fiscal year. I think, honestly, a large portion of why Disney is down. Thank you, Taparsanelli. I appreciate that very much. Thank you. The reason Disney is down is because Disney went woke. And I don't think a lot of just your normal run-of-the-mill Americans that live in flyover country like I do are particularly interested in having their kids watch Disney films now. Biblically commanded, raise your children up in the way that they should go so they do not depart from it when they are older. And when Disney is complicit in advancing agendas that are anti-biblical, why would I let my kids watch that? I won't. You couple that with the fact that everybody is tightening their purse strings, everybody. Why am I going to spend money to indoctrinate my children? And so I see this as a really good example of go woke, get broke. I like it. This is free market capitalism. People supporting or not supporting companies that they agree with or don't agree with. And so I don't really mourn for Disney. That being said, last night, sitting on the couch, my wife and my daughter watched Sleeping Beauty, which was interesting to me because it never occurred to me that Sleeping Beauty is basically written in King James English. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny, right? And then like at the end when the prince, he gets the sword of truth and the shield of righteousness. I'm like, what is going on here? Like, holy cow. How far has Disney come? The sword of truth and the shield of righteousness. Like, Disney was basically preaching Ephesians 6 in Sleeping Beauty, and now they're like, here's our first open LGBTQ plus character, and it just illustrates to me the difference in ideology in Disney over the last 50 or so years. And so I'm not surprised that people are running from supporting Disney. And if you want to support Disney, that's fine. Go for it. That's all you, bro. But, Ephesians 6, because we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against authorities, and against world rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual matters of wickedness in the heavenlies. Because of this, take up the complete armor of Elohim so that you have power to withstand in the wicked day, and having done all to stand. Stand then, having girded your waist with truth, and having put on the breastplate of righteousness, and having fitted your feet with the preparation of the good news of peace. Above all, having taken up the shield of belief with which you shall have power to quench all the burning arrows of the wicked one. Take also the helmet of deliverance. By the way, all these things in Ephesians 6, they're not new concepts. They come from the book of Isaiah. And I would recommend strongly you can compare and contrast Ephesians 6 against the outfit, the special garb that the high priest wore. Yeah, because this is not a Roman soldier's garb that's being preached in Ephesians 6. This is a high station Levite, or the high priest is what we're talking about here. Above all, having taken up the shield of belief, which you shall have power to quench all the burning arrows of the wicked one, take also the helmet of deliverance and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of Elohim, praying at all times with all prayer and supplication in the Spirit, watching in all perseverance and supplication for all the set apart ones. The set apart ones, the saints. Really good definition of what a saint is in Revelation 14, verse 12. So, Disney having lost their way, I'm not surprised that people are flocking from Disney and that their stock is falling tremendously. That's the brief for today. It's super long. I didn't intend for it to be 50 minutes long, but it is. And here we are. Happy Wednesday to everybody. If you're one of those people that jumps off when it's time to talk about how to support the show, I would encourage you strongly to beat feet, skedaddle, get out of here, have a blessed day. Shalom. For everybody else, let's have a brief conversation about how to support the show. Patreon is the economic engine of the Bear Nation. Thank you to everybody who's on Patreon who supports the show. It's $15 or $5 per month, which works out to approximately 15 cents per video on Patreon. This morning, we talked about traveling to 2A unfriendly states. And how does Bear deal with that? And so there's always like nuggets of wisdom on Patreon. Patreon is set up like a prepper consultancy. You ask me questions and I answer them directly to you for the benefit of the whole Patreon family. Thank you, K-Bonk. So if you'd like to participate in that, there's a link in every description of every video and live stream. Good morning, Mark Chase. Tell us all about the medical supplies at Refuge Medical. That comes next, homie. There's an order to this. Order ABKO. And so Patreon's the bomb. And it's a much more intimate relationship. And there's more depth to the conversation over at Patreon. And it's exclusive, and it's meant to be that way. The not so brief. That's right. So link in every description, every live stream, every video. Okay, good talk. From Refuge Medical, I think there's a handful of buy one, get one half off tourniquets left. These are not Chinese garbage tourniquets. They are North American Rescue Combat Application Gen 7 tourniquets. One of two tourniquets that is Committee on TCCC recommended. The other is the Soft T, which we also sell, AKA real tourniquets that'll actually save your life. There's a lot of people, not our people, but there's a lot of people who say, well, I can get one cheaper somewhere else. You do that, homie. I see a lot of kits on the market today. Scrolling Instagram is one of the most frustrating things that I do. And I see ads from first aid kit companies all the time where they'll have a $70 first aid kit. And you look at what's in it, and it's Chinese garbage, including the tourniquet. We have broken those on camera all the time. I bought 4 tourniquets for $20 from Amazon, a year or so ago, and broke all 4 of them in under 5 minutes on camera, showing you the methodology of failure for those things, which is why you don't want one. And so a tourniquet's one of those things that has to work when you need it to work. If it doesn't work, you die, literally. So saving a few bucks on a tourniquet, one would ask oneself, how much is your life worth? How much is the life of your wife, of your kids, or your loved ones worth? Right? Like, I saved $10 on this tourniquet. Cool. It's garbage. I have taken tourniquets from people that I have met in real life. Like if they're carrying a tourniquet, if they have one on their gear, whatever, I'm like, including law enforcement officers, let me see your tourniquet. They hand it to me. I'll look at it. I will take my shears, which I have shears on me right now. I will take my shears, cut it in half, and throw it in the trash and say, you are not allowed to have this tourniquet because it's not a tourniquet. Here's a real one. Okay. So Cat Gen 7 tourniquets, buy one, get one half off. The splinting kit is the December daily deal of today. So you can check that out. It's like $45 and it's got Ace bandages and cohesive bandages and Sam splints and blah, blah, blah. It's got all that stuff in it. Let's see. Sam Splint, 2-inch ace bandage, 4-inch ace bandage, 3-inch rolled gauze, 2-inch surgical tape, and a North American Rescue triangle bandage. $45. If you're in California and there's a 6.4 magnitude earthquake and you break a bone, you're going to want one of those. In fact, if you're KL and you go outside in the coming freeze and your skin starts to fall off, because that's what your iPhone told you was going to happen. You could hold your skin on with you could hold your skin on with the ace bandage till you get back to the wood stove. Let's see. Mouse said he's not lying. He did that to my rat tourniquet. Yes, I did. I take air quote tourniquets from people all the time and destroy them and give them real ones because you need to have a real tourniquet. All of our stuff is HSA and FSA eligible, which expires the end of this year, which if you're not tracking is 10 days from now. So if you have an HSA health savings account or an FSA, a flexible spending account, the vast majority of them end the end of this year. They reset at the end of the calendar year, and it's use it or lose it with these programs. So if you've got HSA money burning a hole in your pocket, all of Refuge stuff is HSA and FSA eligible. Of course, it's made in America. It's guaranteed forever. And when I say guaranteed forever, if you buy it and give it to somebody as a gift, it's still guaranteed. If you buy it 20 years from now, right? You buy it and 20 years from now, it breaks. Cool. Send it to me. I'll repair it or replace it at no cost to you. If you use the contents of your kit to save somebody's life, I replace the contents at no cost to you. 57 people are still alive because we showed up to work. That's really important to me. It's a big part of our ethos. Mission statement for Refuge Medical is to save lives while in service to the Father's kingdom and experiencing the abundance of his provision and blessing. And so we're not a profit-driven company, although arguably at times we should be, because a lot of times this becomes a labor of love. We're not a profit-driven company. I want good products in the hands of good people. I want you all to be appropriately equipped to save a life, your own, or the life of somebody that you love. I mean, there's 57 kids that still have a dad or a mom. That's a big deal, right? Law enforcement officers, soldiers, special operations guys, school bus drivers, soccer moms, construction workers, normal people who are all still here because they had a Refuge kit. And so they're not price point kits. They're not good idea fairy kits. They actually work. And I would encourage you strongly to get one if you don't have one. And if you do have one, but you know somebody else who needs one, 'tis the season. And of course, in December, you've got free shipping the entire month of December. Don't need a promo code, don't need nothing. You can just go check it out. And if you're on Patreon, you have your promo code for a percentage off. So use it. Refuge training. Had a really good planning meeting for Refuge training yesterday, talking about 2023, what that's going to look like. And I think a lot of times with Refuge training, what people miss, and it's our fault because we focus a lot on the fact that it's a tactical medicine class. We focus a lot on the fact that it's the best class that you as a civilian can go to. And that's not me saying that. We've had a half a dozen Army Special Forces tell us that. But what we miss is the really strong spiritual element to Refuge training. There's a strong sense of overcoming because you come to class essentially as an innocent bystander and you leave as a responder, empowered to be able to use the kit that you have to save somebody's life. And that if you take responder 3, at some point, you will hit a wall, your own personal wall. And our instructors not only illuminate the fact that you've hit the wall, but they guide you through how to get over the wall, under the wall, around the wall, through the wall, and break down these stumbling blocks, these mental barriers that you have, that you are literally not the same person at the end of Responder 3 as you were when you began Responder 3. We've had so many people come to us after class and explain to us what a life-changing event Responder 3 has been for them. We get people who write in all the time. I saw an email last week, a guy who said the 3 most important dates of my life were when I married my wife, when my child was born, and when I completed Responder 3. It's more than tactical medicine. It is tactical medicine. But tactical medicine is the vehicle that is used to teach you how to overcome. It's a transformative process. There is nothing else like it on the face of this earth. Not only is it the best training from a tactical medicine standpoint that one could attend, that one could go to, but it's also something way more than that. And I think we as an organization have done a really bad job of conveying that second portion. The metaphysical transformation that takes place in somebody when they attend class, the peace of mind and the personal growth that comes simply from attending and completing Responder 1, Responder 2, Responder 3. There's not another thing like it on the face of the earth. We are prototyping Responder 4. Responder 4 is going to be a 3-day event. And it's invitation only with the prerequisite of having completed Responder 3. It's an immersive experience. I don't know of anything else that's like it. I don't know of anything else that's like Responder 1, Responder 2, Responder 3, our current suite of classes that we offer. So I would strongly encourage you to come to class. If you have a kit but you don't know how to use it, come to class. If you've been trained in how to use your kit but it was a decade ago, come to class. We've had Special Forces medics take the class and say this is the best civilian class they've ever seen. We've had trauma surgeons take the class, ER docs take the class. And it's humbling because it's like, you're a doctor, why are you here? You should know this stuff. And to which the response is, and I didn't know this. It never occurred to me because I'm not an ER doc. Hey, all that stuff happens out there. I've never had to do austere medicine. I've never had to do trauma medicine. I wear a coat in a static environment that's been disinfected, that has everything I could ever need at my fingertips. I don't know how to do this stuff out there. That's humbling, man. And we've had thousands of people, over 2,500 people get trained in the last couple of years training. And it is something else. A lot of intangibles with Refuge training. We have a feature of the class, but to speak to the spiritual element, we have baptized more people than we can count. Stopped counting somewhere around 60. We've baptized more people than we can count at Refuge training classes because of the element of overcoming. And one would probably think from a business standpoint, it's maybe wise to not lean into the fact to shine light on the fact that there's definitely a spiritual element to this. But it's us, man. This is just who we are. Yod. What's your statement of faith? Yod. Do stuff. And it's just been incredible to see the Father working through the organization that is Refuge Training, going out and meeting people where they are at. RL said, Warrior Poet Society is selling crappy kits with zero training. 1 + 1 = 0. Well, I won't speak to Warrior Poet Society. I'll just tell you this. Refuge Medical makes the best kits on the face of the earth. That's my guarantee to you. Refuge Training provides the best training on the face of the earth. That's my guarantee to you. We are the Rolls-Royce of the medical industry. From customer service to final product to testing and evaluation to components to research and development to prototyping to training to everything we do to the highest possible standard. That standard is excellence. We have a one-word standard at our company. It's excellence. It's not perfection because perfection is unattainable by human beings, but it is excellence. The class also shows what brotherhood should be. Bless you, Drew. Thank you. So, Refuge training, I'd encourage you to come to class. And lastly, but certainly not least, is Grindstone Ministries. It is the end of the year. If you're into end of year giving, please prayerfully consider Grindstone Ministries. We are 100% funded by the Bear Nation, which I would humbly submit is the best audience on the face of the earth. All the things that we do, whether it's Bear Independent or Refuge Medical or Refuge Training or Kaleb House or Grindstone, we are empowered to do because of you. That's just a fact. Is it the Father? Yes. But is it the Father working through you? Yes, absolutely. And it is humbling and amazing to sit at the center of all of this and to see what a group of people who is staunch in their faith, who believes in good works, who supports good missions, to see what y'all can do and to see what you have enabled us to do with a relatively small YouTube channel, a relatively small presence. It's incredible. And I'll say it this way. I feel the weight of you every day in the best way possible. I feel I have a responsibility to you to be a good steward of the blessings that you've entrusted to me to use for good works. We take that really seriously. We have so many conversations around this money is Yah's money. We have to be very careful about how we spend it and what we spend it on. What we do with it. It's not our money, it's Yah's money. They're not our works, it's Yah's works. It's not even our conviction, it's Yah's conviction. And it is a blessing for me to sit at the center of that and to be able to experience all of that because of y'all. And so I thank you as the cheapest way possible to say that. Thank you. Thank you for being awesome. So Grindstone Ministries, end of year giving. Our brother Saw has a shirt being produced by Sanctified Supply Co. There's a link in the description. The Facts Not Feeling shirt, a portion of the proceeds from that shirt go directly to building Kaleb House, which is our restoration facility for juvenile human trafficking survivors. And you can also find Kaleb House hoodies, long sleeves, and t-shirts. There's a link to that in the description as well. Yes, they are expensive, but so is anti-human trafficking. It's very expensive. It costs upwards of $50,000 to do a single extraction, to take one person out of a bad place, put them in a safe house, and meet their every need. 50 grand. It's going to take about $1.5 million to build Kaleb House. Construction costs. Just is what it is. I am not afraid of those numbers. I know that if I step out in faith and do what it is that the Father told me to do, I will get what I need when I need it to be able to do that. But a huge portion of how that happens is you. And so I thank you for that. That's the brief for today. I'll remind you one more time. It's going to be cold. Don't let the skin fall off your body. Stay warm. Have a plan. If there's some holes in your plan for today, today's the day. Mitigate that risk. Fill the holes. Do basic prepper stuff. And it's going to be okay. I appreciate you all very much. Have a blessed day. Shalom.